Welcome to Dave's Dugout. This is my softball podcast, and all we're going to do is talk about softball. And I got a special guest today. We're going to interview, and I think this is going to be about as enjoyable as you would ever want. Again, I've got a toll-free number, 833-7-DUGOUT, 833-7-DUGOUT. And maybe we'll take some calls later on before this session ends. I'm going to spend about an hour doing this, okay? So I want you to know that. I want you to sit back and relax, and I'll interview Mr. Bill Humphrey here. He's used to be the past president of the Amateur Softball Association of America, and he was also our commissioner at one time, and he was our umpire-in-chief at one time. And I don't know what other accolades he had, but I know he had all those. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Bill. Bill, you want to say hi?
Hello. And I've did a few other things. Did a lot of cleanup. I was a janitor and washed the cars and did all the things you have to do. Anyway, yeah.
Yes. Well,
it was never intended that way, David.
That's good.
I was an umpire.
That's right.
Period. Things just changed and called for changes.
That's right.
I would never have left umpire, and I left the national umpire staff to be the commissioner when they replaced Matt Urban back in I don't even remember the year, but probably 92, I think, somewhere in there. But anyway, that's the way life goes.
Sure. I just wanted to ask you, when did you start umpiring?
Well, I started umpiring in 1952. And I started in Little League. They put an ad in the paper for umpires for Little League. My dad was an umpire. And my dad died in 1951, and my dad helped Little League get started. There's about 8 guys that put Little League together, and Midland was the first Little League in the state of Michigan. And that first year we had 14. But my dad died in 1951, and that fall was when they started advertising they needed umpires. So I volunteered and started, at the time, I didn't think much of it. When I look back, I think, who would have thought volunteering as a Little League umpire would lead to the things that I was able to do. And what I mean by that is tour 50 states and
Wow.
7 foreign countries. 3 times I went to Germany for 3-4 weeks at a time for the government. They had a tie-in with ASA and the National Umpire Staff. So I'm saying,
Sure.
No one could tell me or even offer what it might lead to. I do know one thing. When I was 13 years old and started umpiring.
At 13?
Yes.
Wow.
I was 13 years old. And the fans kind of liked it, because here's a kid that played the first 2 years of Little League and now he's umpiring. And in fact, the second year I umpired, I was made assistant umpire-in-chief of Little League baseball. But and like I say, I can remember being on the field for the first time. All of a sudden, there's a ground ball to the shortstop, going to throw the runner out at first base. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? I mean, it's easy to sit in the crowd and call an out or safe, but no, they didn't teach you anything.
Sure.
In fact, we didn't have a program that taught umpires until I was probably 19. And that's when I transferred. When I was 15, I started umpiring softball.
Okay.
And the ironic part of that is I went out to the park in the fall and they were playing the city tournaments. The park attendant back in those days was a guy by the name of George Graves, who is the backfield coach for our high school. And I'm just going into high school at 15. So I go out to the park that night, and George needs umpires. And he knew I umpired baseball. So I'm walking through the tunnel at Curry to go out on Diamond One, and George Graves, my backfield coach in high school, which I'm just going into, yells, "Hey, Bill, you got your gear?" I stopped. I said, "What gear?" "Your umpiring gear." I said, "I always have my umpiring gear." He says, "You're on Diamond too." I said, "I don't umpire softball." He said, "You do now." So what do you do when you're 15 years old going into high school and your backfield coach, even though I didn't play the backfield, but your backfield coach says, "Well, you do now." That's how I got started umpiring. And they paid me $2 cash. Now there's the catch. I don't believe I ever umpired for money, but I'm going to tell you something. If you go out there and have fun for an hour and a half and get $2
Yeah. Back then,
instead of 75 cents for your neighbor's lawn,
yeah, that was good money back then.
You bet. Always has been good money
Sure.
because it's been fun.
And I can tell you, because when I hired into General Motors to work at 18 years old in 1964, my starting wage was $2.56 an hour.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, it was the assembly line, and I would have rather been in your spot than in my spot.
Well, I know a little bit about money
Yep.
because I never had any. Still don't. My wife's got a lot. So anyway.
Well, I knew you had started early in your life because I interviewed you for your book. Speaking of that, we're going to plug it just a minute here. I got Time and Place here as the name of the book. And I'm sorry, it's reversed like this, but it's the biography of Bill Humphrey is in there, and also a history of softball. If you're interested in that, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes & Noble sites, or if you want to order one from me, Bill and I will sign it, and I'll get you one, okay? Just send it to my email address at daveumpire@aol.com. daveumpire@aol.com. So we got the plug in there, okay? So I got to ask you.
Yep.
I know you played the game, and I know you played against the great Bonnie Jones. Am I right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you were very old at the time.
I believe I was 19, and I had transferred to Michigan State in the fall. I had gone to school at Manchester College in Indiana for a couple of years, and I transferred to Michigan State. And that afternoon in the fall, when I registered, it was about 4:00, I think, and so I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, I'm going to go over to football.
Sure.
Football was working out, and you talk about time and place. This is a story of time and place because I left after registering. I went over to the football field. A trainer on the football field played for the Lansing Bombers, and we had just played them the year before. And we happened to beat them the year before. But that shortstop, he played shortstop at that time, was a guy by the name of Dick Barker. And Dick was a trainer at Michigan State. He recognized me from playing the year before. And he didn't yell at me, he whistled. When he played the game, he didn't chatter, he whistled, sharp whistle. And I look up and I recognized him. I knew he played for the Bombers. But anyway, he starts talking to me and he's asking me what I'm doing. And so I told him I just transferred here to go to school. And now I've got to look for a job and a place to live. And we chewed the fat a little bit. And he found out that I had a knee injury in my sophomore year in high school and was advised not to play football because of the possibility of really having problems.
Sure.
So I didn't. But I started working with Dr. Wagner in Midland, was the high school trainer. He taught me how to tape. And Dick found that out and he said, well, just a minute. When he found out I could tape ankles and knees and your nose if I wanted to, I mean, and he went over to see Robbie, the head trainer, because they were looking for someone. So when he came back, I was hired. So there's your time and place.
Yep.
Okay. And then he asked me, because he worked for the university, he had access to all their facilities. So the Lansing Bombers worked out all winter. And so he asked me if I'd be interested in playing with the Lansing Bombers.
Sure.
Well, sure. I'd give it a shot. That's when I had the opportunity to play against Bonnie Jones. And if people don't know who Bonnie Jones is, I'm going to tell you something. They aren't any better. There's a lot. I'm not saying he's the best, but they aren't any better. And I can name a whole bunch of those.
We're going to get to that too.
Well, anyway, the other thing that adds to this story is I'm from Midland, Michigan. I watched the Dow ACs from the time I was probably 7 years old. And through the years, there were a number of athletes from Midland who went on to play minor league baseball, didn't quite make it, come back, played for Dow. So any baseball player from Midland has that in his mind.
Sure.
Of course, by the time I got there, I graduated in 57. In 55 was when Dow quit sponsoring, but you still had that in your mind. Could you have played with Dow?
Sure.
And today I'm going to play Detroit Nosdorf, and their picture is Bonnie Jones. And he had just won 8 games in the national championship to set a record and win the national championship. So I'm saying, you know what? If I can hit Bonnie Jones, I could have played with Dow. And of course, I batted 6th at that time in the lineup, which to me was respectable.
Sure.
And I'm 19 or 20. I really don't know. But I'm typical, 19, 20, let me at him.
Yep.
We'll find out. And it's funny because I get in the batter's box and I'm ready.
Yep.
And Bonnie was a pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
Bonnie didn't throw as hard as he could throw at all times. Bonnie had one of the best drop balls there ever was. And he would throw a 3/4 speed rise ball, but he would place it. And it was up and in. And I rip it down the left field line, take off for first base, and realize it's foul, stop, come back. And in my mind, I'm thinking, who in the hell is Bonnie Jones? Yeah. So I get in with Marty.
I'm pretty good.
Yeah. So I get him back in the box and dig my spikes in and grip my bat, and I'm ready for the next pitch. And it came. I'm about ready to swing at it, and the catcher got it. And I said to myself, hello, Mr. Jones. But I did, for the first time in my life, choke up on a bat, and I was probably the most defensive hitter ever played a game. And I remember hit 2 ground balls to the second baseman and a pop up to shortstop. And
That's pretty good. You got contact every time.
well, that's what Tuck Bedford tells me.
Yeah, man. I'm sure
But I
Tuck's watching
said,
this.
I'm going to tell you something. I was so defensive. It was not my game. You know, I mean, I could hit a baseball. I could not hit that top pitching in softball. In fact, the next day I was no longer on the roster. I went to full-time umpire.
Whoa, okay.
Back then I was doing both, you know. So I owe that to Bonnie Jones. And I'm not.
So Bonnie Jones drove you into umpiring.
I've always said, I told Jerry Hoffman, I said, if you don't like the way I umpire, you should have let me get another hit or two, you know. But and I could hit the ball at Class A, but there's hell of a difference.
Sure there is. Well, you know, I know I've told you this before, but we mentioned Tuck Bedford, but Tuck Bedford got me into umpiring because he was a neighbor of mine just 3 houses away, and I was coaching softball at the time. I do believe I was coaching Aaron Bedford, his son, and my son. And anyway, he said to me, he says, Dave, he says, why don't you get an umpire? And I think you'd be a pretty good umpire. And I said, I don't know about that. He goes, get into it. You try it. I said, okay, I'll give it some thought. And here I am today after 30 some years. But anyway, enough about me.
Yeah, well, no.
And so you gave up. You didn't give up playing softball altogether, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
I never played another game.
Well, it was good.
No. Well,
I mean, you played against the best,
I'm
or what we call the best.
well, no.
And
the best in Michigan.
Sure.
When you're playing against Jimmy Doyle and Lynn Ackerman and Jack Greenwood and the redhead from Bay City, oh man, I mean you're playing against the best in Michigan.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And now you're playing against the best in the country.
But when you start, there's a difference. I mean, when you look at it, and I don't really like to talk like this, but it's true. I mean, Jimmy Doyle was as good as a pitcher you're ever going to see, except for the very, very exceptional.
Sure.
And Bonnie happened to be one of those.
Well,
It's like Ty Stofflet. When I first worked in 75, I worked my first national. And
Ty was one of the best. Of course, we know that.
Ty was one of the best. And like I've had people ask me who was the best. I won't
Right.
comment. I will comment. I won't.
Sure.
Won't name it. Well, to me, it's like somebody says, well, I think Ted Williams was the greatest hitter who ever played a game. Well, I'll tell you what, as soon as you say that, you're going to have an argument.
Sure you will.
So I don't go there.
Yep.
You know,
just name him one of the best.
you know, and I could probably talk for an hour on my thoughts on pitching. And yet I'm not a pitching coach.
Sure.
But I do know what that ball does.
I'm sure you saw all the different kinds.
Oh, yes. Yes. And sometimes, you know, I got to tell you this story.
Sure.
Because to me, it in 75, when I went out to Hayward, California to work my first national tournament, I wound up working Thursday night, which is the last game of the winner's bracket. That's the two best teams.
Sure.
And it happened to be the Sunners from Pennsylvania and Ty Stofflet and Brubaker out of Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
And every game I've ever worked for Ty Stofflet, the first pitch he throws, I'm going to tell you something, it's going to explode. I don't know if it's a drop or a rise ball, but I'm going to tell you, he's going to set the tone. See? Billy Pfeiffer, who's one of the best leadoff hitters I've ever seen. Notice I didn't say he was the best.
Nope.
Because I don't want to argue with
Nope.
you. But
We know a few.
Billy got in the batter's box, but Billy is thinking the same thing I am. He knows Ty Stofflet. This first pitch is going to explode. Am I going to swing at it or am I not? Is it going to be a rise ball or is it going to be his drop ball? Well, it wasn't either one of them. It was a changeup. And Billy offered at it, brought it back, and goes, and it was right down the heart of the plate. I would have called it a ball because he not only fooled Billy Pfeiffer,
He fooled you too.
he fooled me because I go into this game thinking, here's what Ty does. Well, when he did that, when he gives that downswing on it, and I said, thanks, Billy. And I don't know why I did that because I very seldom talk to players. And he jerks his bat back for what? I said, if you would have taken that pitch, I'd have called it a ball because I said my mind was right where you were going. And then, so what's really funny is, I don't know how many years later, Midland was hosting the 42 and over men's fast pitch. And Midland always introduced every player on the third base side that walked towards home plate and got recognized. Well, there's Billy Pfeiffer. Billy Pfeiffer breaks the line. I'm out at the pitcher's mound with the Redcoats.
Sure.
Because we're sponsoring the tournament. Billy Pfeiffer comes running out. He gets to me and he says, you know, you still owe me one. So that's what makes.
Oh, yeah, that's what makes the game great.
Yes,
that's
what keeps us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had similar stories like that happen to me, so I know exactly what
all
you mean.
Umpires have.
Oh, we all do, absolutely. Yeah. And we could fill up an afternoon and an evening, which we've done before. I'm sure you spent a few hours at the bully afterwards.
Well, that's.
We won't go into that though.
No. Well, I don't drink, so it didn't matter. I drink, but I will tell you this: Tom Gilstead, when he was coming up as an umpire, he said he learned more at the Boulevard or the picnic table after a tournament.
Absolutely.
Than any time
there's nothing like sitting down afterwards and.
Absolutely.
Yep. I remember Jim LeGros, myself, and Jeff York one time. We sat at Hoyt Park and the lights were on till like 3 a.m. and we were still sitting there throwing down a couple. So been there and done there. Yep. But anyway, you were talking about pitchers. So I'm just going to run a few off. Who would you say had the best fast pitch, the best fastball?
Well, like I say, there's so many of them.
Maybe not the best, but who would you say was
some of the better ones?
Really.
Well, here, let me say this. I get very irritated. There was an article on Ty Stofflet in Sports Illustrated back in I think it was 77 or 78. And they said he threw 110 mile an hour.
Well, we know better than that.
Well, I sure as hell do. And because I had a radar gun back in the late 60s and 70s, and I timed every pitcher that come into Midland.
Sure.
And the best come into Midland. So when they said 110 mile an hour, now what they're talking about is equivalent
to baseball.
And sometime if you want me on, I'll come back and
we will.
We'll talk about a report that baseball did in 1968.
I remember it well. We will talk about that another time.
To me, that's
very interesting, by the way. That's one thing that's very, very interesting. We'll talk about that.
And I talk about, okay, when he asked the fastest, well, you know, Roy Burleson, way back in the 60s and 70s, he was a leaper, but he could bring it. Owen Wolford, Ty Stofflet,
the Fog, yep.
Dick Brubaker. And I know there's a bunch I haven't named yet, but I'm just saying, the more important thing is in my book is well, I'll just flat tell you, Ty Stofflet, Owen Wolford, Burleson, Dick Brubaker, the guys that threw the hardest, threw 79 mile an hour. Every one of them Don't give me 80. I mean, I'm talking about
Sure.
using the
Oh,
same
God.
gun.
So close to 80 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nowhere near 100 miles an hour.
No. But where it come in is the equivalent because they're throwing 79 mile an hour from 46 feet.
That's when they're on the pitcher's plate, not from when they're releasing the ball either, right?
Right. But what's more important is the reaction time. See, back in that day, the men threw, I'm just using 79 mile an hour, and the women, Kathy Aronson, you name it,
Sure.
they threw 69, but they threw from 40 feet. So again, if you want a comparison, you got to look at reaction time.
Sure.
So you compare that to baseball at 90 mile an hour and 90 feet. See, so now, and I'm sure occasionally somebody threw a pitch a little more than 79.
Well, I'm sure they did.
I'm
Because now the game has evolved, and now
Well-
there's a lot of women that play the college game, and they're throwing in the low 70s mile an hour.
Now,
and I'm sure
yes.
some men are probably in the low 80s now.
Well, they are.
No doubt about it.
But you also, back in the mid '90s when we started, ASA started testing equipment and trying to make some sanity out of this whole thing and the leaping and all of this. That's why I was very influential in getting leaping approved. And the reason I did was when you look at the reaction time, Darren Zach. Nobody threw the ball harder than Darren Zach.
Yeah, and he was about 350, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was about 6'3", 350, and had the agility of who's that little gymnasium? Gymnastics.
Yes.
Anyway, when you look at the reaction time, when you look at a Darren Zach or any of the names I named, I've seen them all get their jock knocked off on a given day.
Well, sure. It's going to
Okay.
happen.
But let me get back to where I started, and that was with the fastball. If you just throw the ball hard and fast and it doesn't move, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to get beat by the best because they don't care. I mean, their reactions are so quick. Their hands are so quick.
Sure.
If we did the baseball report and talked about some of those things, you'd understand. But if the ball doesn't move, now that's the thing that made Owen Wolford stand out, in my opinion. Burleson stand out. There are guys who can't throw the ball straight. They throw the ball hard, and it does. Dick Brubaker has the best drop ball in the world because he could move it left and he could move it right.
I was going to ask you who had the best drop ball. So
Oh,
you answered that one.
Well,
Or one of the best.
One of the
Whenever
best.
I say best, by the way, I mean one of the best.
Yeah. Bonnie had a great drop. There's a lot
Sure.
of pitchers that did. But I think the difference is Dick Brubaker. The first time I saw Dick Brubaker, he could move a drop ball not only up and down, but left and right 6 inches. So he could throw it in on the right-handed batter. He bails out, comes back in, catches a corner. And McCardle had a left-handed hitter, Jimmy Wright, who played first base, who loved to crowd the plate a little bit. And I couldn't wait for Dick Brubaker to throw that first backup drop ball on Jimmy Wright. And when he did, it was strike three. And I enjoyed that. But, and Jimmy started to say something and decided not to, but he'd never seen that pitch before. And I'm going to tell you something else. I didn't either. I'm not like that. But it's ball movement. There's so many things that mean so much.
Sure.
And it's like Hurley from New Zealand. Man, he was probably one of the slowest workers I've ever known. Back when Dow played, the pitchers wanted the ball back. The pitchers wanted to throw it again.
Sure.
They didn't mess around. I
Nope.
mean, and I think baseball. There's so many players that played baseball that come into the game of fast pitch and move to the top of the game of fast pitch. Uh, we didn't have any more 50-minute games. That's just part of just the growth of the game.
Sure.
But there's so many things that you tied to.
Change up. How about a change up?
Well, I will again not say
I won't say the
who's
best.
the best, but I'll tell you something about Ty Stouselet's change up. There was none better, and he threw a change up that was a rise ball. Now he's the only one I've ever seen that threw the first time he did it to me. When I was umpiring, it's like the first time I saw a split finger baseball pitch.
Sure.
Ball just, drop ball spins. Drop ball curves, it spins. Rise ball spins, it goes up. You can read that same as a batter. The first time I saw a split finger fast pitch was University of Detroit playing Central Michigan. Right now, I can't think of the coach's name, but he played with the Philadelphia Phillies, and he taught his pitchers how to throw that thing. And I'm telling you, the first time I saw it, I said, "Ball, whoops! Could I have that back?" Well, you know as well as I do.
Oh
you
yeah,
can't,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But I'll tell
We've
you
all
what,
been fooled.
the next time he threw it, he didn't fool me. But so Ty threw a changeup in Hayward, California that year, and the ball kind of floated up. And the change in speed when you
Sure.
it's reaction.
Absolutely.
It's hard to describe.
Well, we're going to talk about two pitchers we haven't talked about yet, and they were in the longest game ever played, and that was Peter Meredith and Peter Finn. Do you remember that game? I know you weren't there behind the plate, but you were there watching because I was too.
Well, I'll tell you what, I umpired a doubleheader that night on Diamond One.
Okay.
Because I said the other umpires need a chance to go over and watch that tournament.
Sure.
Because I've never been to one. I'm an ASA man. No two ways about it.
Same here.
But the ISC is a hell of an organization. It's the same teams. It's the same players. Why do we? And excuse me, the ISC has people that no different than ASA. ASA has the same type of people. They just don't want to listen to another organization. Well, if you were perfect, you wouldn't need another organization. Okay. And I tried to work towards that, but
Sure.
for the longest time, I could never find anyone in the ISC that would give me the time of day. But that's another story.
That's
too.
another story down the road.
I've lost track.
About it was a 34 inning game, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For those who aren't aware of it, again, I was there. I took a friend of mine who had never seen fast pitch softball before, and we spent the entire night watching that game. And he asked me, "Are all the games like this?" And I said, "Boy, I'm sure glad they aren't." So anyway, of course, Bill was there also, and I'm sure a few of you viewers were probably there also. But it was held at Vet Stadium in Saginaw. So go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, what I worked a doubleheader, and they kept coming out from the office at 911 and telling us they're tied up. And so I worked a doubleheader with Pete Marsh. Pete and I went and had a hamburger at the Boulevard, and we're sitting there, and I said, "Pete, I'm going to Saginaw. This game isn't over. It's not even close." I think we got there probably the 17th inning.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so we saw 17 innings.
Yeah, you saw it again.
But I'm going to give you my thought.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if any of you players that played in that game, I don't mean this to be negative toward you,
Or yeah, not demeaning at all.
but
No.
I'm gonna tell you something. You had two of the best at that time. You had two of the best pitchers in the country, throwing against two of the weakest hitting teams, in my opinion. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm
Right.
saying. You know, you had some hitters on Saginaw, you had hitters on the, but Peterson, Rod Peterson, who owned the farm, which is a bar, he sponsors his team. He was noted for getting the best pitching in the world. That's where he had the pitching. He didn't get the hitting until probably after 2000. Because the pitching is going to hold you in there. And the pitching, look at the times that one pitcher won the ASA National Championship, one pitcher won the ISC. You know, what you tried to do in those two tournaments is get a draw to where you got some team beat somebody else that you knew you could throw your number two. And that, a lot of that is psychology. Ty Stoffel, I can't think of the pitcher's last name, but he was 6'5", and I'm telling you, he threw bullets, but he wasn't Ty Stoffel. They did not play defensively as strong for him. They didn't hit like they did for Stock. You know, so
Sure.
the game can change. That night, and I'm not belittling the hitting by either one of those teams
because I'll throw something in here. Art Tolfree was behind the plate as a catcher for Saginaw, caught the whole game. Tuck Bedford was in the outfield. I do believe he got the winning run or hit. I think it was a hit. And there was a couple other. I know Kenny Gay was out there. There's a few ball players that I remember were out there that were very good ball players. So
they're good ball.
But remember one thing: for a 34-inning game, when those two pitchers, your batting average is going to really hurt after that.
Well,
that game,
like Tuck Bedford. Tuck Bedford wasn't a power hitter, but you got to remember. You know what Tuck Bedford is? He's one of four people in my 70 years of softball that scored from first base on a single.
I remember this.
I mean, now Terry Muck from Aurora did it in the national tournament, and two others did it. Avon Meacham, he played for Baltimore at one time or out there. He scored from first base on a single. And I mean, you're not going to do that on the play alone. You've got to do some scouting.
Yep.
You got to know when a player might play something nonchalant. Okay, you're at first base in a single, you're going to third.
And I'm sure he was probably stealing at the time. So now he's already got the jump.
Could very well.
And he probably got the second by the time the ball was hit.
Yep.
And now he's going to third. And I think that's what happened was he just kept right on motoring.
To me, those are things that, well, you know, I grew up watching the Dow ACs. When you went out and watched the Dow ACs, they had a pregame warm-up. They had infield. They hit to the outfield. You saw them getting ready for the game. You could look at an outfielder and see whether they had a good, strong arm or not. And of course, most of them did because their budgets were out of sight. But I mean, if you just during practice, you used that in your game. And then in later years, after 55, when Dow quit sponsoring, ASA at one time when I first got involved with them, they had infield the first round only. And then they knocked it off because of the timing element.
Sure.
So, but it's interesting.
Yes.
What's to me anyway? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Again, that was a fascinating game. But I'm going to switch gears here a little bit because a lot of people don't know this. It is in the book, but a lot of people don't realize that at one time, the Michigan Amateur Softball Association, which joined ASA about the same time as ASA organized back in the 34, so 33, MASA actually dropped out of ASA in the 50s. And so I'll let Bill continue the story because I think it was after about, 8, maybe 10, 12 years, they came back in.
I believe it was 56 when they dropped out of ASA. And then rejoined in 69.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I might be off a year or
Sure.
so, but and back when ASA first started, if you didn't play in their tournament, you didn't have to register. And when ASA dropped out, they were it was mandatory that if you belonged to ASA and like Dow, in order for Dow to, all your teams had to register. That was always a problem because you go to a Parks and Recreation department who has a budget and you want to know what softball's going to cost. Well, Parks and Recreation normally just passed it on to the participants, but if the participants revolt and Parks and Recreation people weren't going to fight with those people, so there was that period where it was actually called Michigan Softball Association.
Yes,
MSA. It was run by a guy out of Coldwater by the name of Walt Malcolm, who was actually an insurance man, and he did it basically voluntary. He got a stipend, but I mean, the man made softball in this state. Walt Malcolm. Remember that name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Walt died when he was 92. Walt quit. Being in 1987, Walt was 72. And it was time for him to move on. And that's when I took Walt's place running softball and really learned what softball was all about. I played the game and I umpired the game. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes. A lot that I don't like and didn't like. I don't need politics, but I wound up there and won.
Right. He was was elected president of the Amateur Softball Association. Yes.
So, but anyway, that game, 34 was.
Yep, that was
34 innings was something else.
Yes, it was. I want to talk to you a little bit when you became president of ASA, and you were very instrumental in getting the umpire national clinics organized because we didn't have a national clinic for umpires.
No, well, we didn't.
We had very little training for umpires for that matter.
Well, but we started the umpire schools on a national basis in 1981. Basically, Ron Jeffers, who was a member of the national umpire staff out of Cincinnati, and the director of umpires was Tom Mason out of Delaware, and myself got together in Cincinnati, met in Cincinnati, and decided we wanted to push forward because we had umpire clinics at the time, but they were all about rules. When I became a member of the national umpire staff, I was appointed in 1976. So it took us 5 years to get there, but the director of umpires, Tom Mason, was one of the finest men I've ever met in my life. Tom Mason wanted umpire schools. Tom Mason didn't know a whole lot about umpiring, to be honest. Now, he knew the rules inside and out. In fact, when we decided to put the school together, we also had to decide on, because when they put softball together in 34, they said there was like 47 different sets of rules.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And their major goal was to have one set of rules. Well, the same thing's true in umpiring. So we had to put together a manual. We had a manual, but it was a hit and miss manual, and Tom Mason just basically turned to me and said, "Get it done." And he worked with me. Ron worked with me. This whole staff worked with me to a point, but you have to have a standard if you're going to have a school. And what we basically did in '81, we had a trial run in Indianapolis. And that came about because Tom Mason and I, the board of directors of ASA, turned us down on the umpire school. So Tom and I were working behind the scenes, finally got it approved. And what we did was we're going to hold the school in Indianapolis, and the director of umpires of the umpire committee, I'm sorry, not the director of umpires, that's Tom Mason, but the chairman of the umpire committee was to attend that school and see how it was accepted. Now, the reason they gave us for not approving the school was they said that umpires wouldn't pay that kind of money. Well, that's what I was told in Michigan when we started our program in 73. I said at that time, if you let them know the extra money we're charging is going into umpire development, I'll guarantee you they pay the money. Well, I'm going to tell you something.
Which was only like $1 or $2 anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was very reasonable.
Well, in the schools, you had, I think our first school we held was $60. Now, you have to pay transportation and room and all those things on top of that. But for umpires not paying that, for the board of directors to tell us that the umpires won't pay that, 6 days after we opened it, school was closed. 90 people, 27 different organizations, from Maine to California, from Washington to Florida. Don't tell me we don't know what umpires want.
And that's right.
And they were all full to start with. I mean, but all the work that went into it, and the fact that we had to, that's what took us to 1981 before we could get into a position where we now had an adopted manual. Let me tell you what the home plate was advised to do in 1980 before we made the change to the manual. All they said in the manual was the plate umpire shall stand directly behind the catcher with his feet together, his hands behind his back. Been to the airport and see these birds that bop, okay? That's what made me think of. Now, I mean, there's no way you're comfortable.
No.
I mean,
Not
there's no way you get a good look at a pitch. I mean, but I'm just saying, what a difference.
And also, as an umpire, when you put your hand, just for your information, when you put your hands behind your back, your shoulders roll forward. You notice how my shoulders just rolled forward? Guess what that does when you get hit on the shoulder from the fast pitch?
And not only that, when they put them forward, you have no flexibility.
That's right.
If your arms are in front of you, you don't have a whole lot of time. But I'm just saying, even the slightest movement back breaks that. Anyway, okay.
No, that was and again, these are the mechanics that were needed at the time for umpires. We didn't have a mechanics manual that I know of.
Well, we had
I was an umpire in '72 or whatever, but
we had a manual, but it was
rough.
It was terrible. No, parts of it we still use today.
Sure, you have to.
But what the other thing is, the other thing that is different from for us. Okay, if you're umpiring Major League Baseball, if you're umpiring the NCAA College World Series or college ball, if you're umpiring in a specific area, then our manual would change. But our manual was written for fast pitch, for slow pitch, for men, for women, for A, B, C, and D classes, modified. So our manual covers, you can work any game with our manual. I will guarantee you this. If I wrote the manual for the NCAA, it would be different than what they have, but it would also be different. Now, what we do in our manual is we allow for all of these things. For example, we had at one time women's major fast pitch,
Yep.
but it's not like having women's major fast pitch exclusively, because now you can zero in on that. For example, there's a big difference between men's ball and women's ball. It's got nothing to do with male and female. It's got something to do with fences that are 250 feet and fences that once were 190.
Yep.
And NCAA now I think
Well, 225 is the norm.
but see,
Maybe
here's
250.
the biggest difference is timing. Okay, when men hit the ball, if they hit the ball 220 feet, it's probably going to go how far in the air? The travel time. So you have time in that infield to move around that you don't have in the women's game, because the women don't hit the ball that far and they don't hit it as high. So your timing element is totally different. Let me tell you something about umpiring. If you don't allow for timing changes, you're in trouble. You know.
That's for sure.
And there's other differences. I know at one time, softball had what you call a full strike zone.
Yep.
It was the top of the letter.
I covered that just the other day. The
Did
strike
you?
zone, yes.
And
how different it is.
it's different, totally different. Now, a friend of mine, I had the women's major fast pitch in 1978 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and an umpire from Michigan went out there. I didn't say anything to him, and he is a good umpire, but he was having trouble out there because he worked a lot of men's ball, and he was calling the shortened strike zone. And I always had a rule when I was umpire chief. I'm here all day long. You want to talk umpiring? Come on up my room. Well, he come up one night, and he could feel the pressure from these managers and these teams. And I said, Jack, you're calling the men's strike zone. Back in those days, they wanted a full strike zone. Today, they don't. It's a lot more. It's a little smaller. Let's put it that way. But there's a difference.
Same with the college game. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. And you better call it that way.
Yeah, well, if you want to be hired.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's face it.
Yep. But I know, Bill, let me see here how much time I have, because I'm entitled to an hour. Okay. Bill's got one story I want him to talk about that we talked about earlier outside when we were sitting there. So we've got time for one story.
Okay. I hope this is a long story, but it happened in a world tournament. That's in 1984. And that was the year, that was my retirement, I wanted to work a second world tournament. But anyway, during the tournament, one of the games I worked was the Bahamas against Mexico. Now let's face it, what we're looking at, you're looking at 16 teams, and you only got 4 teams probably got a chance to win it. That's the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, and Japan. But an umpire walks on the field, he knows what he's got. He's got what we would classify probably as a Class B team. But don't belittle this game because this is a world tournament. You have two teams that are representing their country, and to them, this is the greatest thing in the world. And they got a chance to win this game. So they're going to play just as hard
Sure.
as anybody ever thought of playing.
Absolutely.
I need to umpire just as hard as any other game. That's something an umpire has to work on. But anyway, to give you what happened in this game, and you got another element. You got foreign languages. You don't have that in the U.S.
No,
You don't have that in Saginaw, Michigan.
no.
So anyway, and I lead off in about the third inning was a Bahamian that's 6'3". Now I'm looking at him and thinking, oh man, where'd he come from? Because you got a team from Mexico, a team from Bahamas. Mexican people are somewhat dwarfed. I don't mean this negatively.
Sure.
I'm just, but 6'3". And here's the thing: the pitcher throws 4 pitches and it's ball 4. If he can't throw a strike to a 6'3" player, what's he going to do to 5'8", 5'6"? Okay. The next batter comes in, he's 5'6". Hits the first pitch down the line, out of the ballpark. I'm the plate umpire. I moved by the time I stop, I'm at third base. The ball is fair by inches. I mean, okay. But in the meantime, I hear a commotion at first base. I can't look there. I've got to follow the ball. My mind's working, and I'm thinking the batter just passed the base runner. I don't know this, but there's a commotion.
Sure.
Okay. So now when I call the ball fair and I've got a home run, when I turn to the field, the tall guy is ahead of the short guy. Well, the tall guy walked. I thought it must have been passing of the runner, which it was, but I don't know this because when I picked the play up, they're in right order, but they're jabbering. They're jabbering at one another, screaming at one another as they're running the bases. So I'm still thinking I'm right, but I don't know. I got a Japanese umpire at first base, and I got a umpire from Peru at second base. He speaks Spanish. He speaks Japanese. I speak very little English. Anyway, when they get to third base, they both stop and are walking off the field. Well, if that legal runner walks in that dugout, I have to call him out by rule. And I did something you don't ever do. I turned to the dugout and said, don't let the runner enter the dugout. And someone, I don't know if he was the manager or not, I know the manager did speak English because I don't know what they speak. After I said it 3 times, he ran to the other end of the dugout and told the runner to go home. So, in my mind, I'm an umpire, right? Before the first pitch is thrown in the inning, it's 1-0 Mexico. The man walks. First pitch of the next batter, he hits out of the park. If he hits that ball out of the park, it's 2-1 Bahamas. If the man's out for passing the runner, it's 1-1. If the legal runner enters the dugout, we're back to 0-1. Now, you don't think that doesn't cause, okay. So now I try to get the umpires together. That's great. We had a great time. We could have had a cup of coffee or something.
And you didn't tell the runner to go score either.
No,
You just said,
no.
Exactly.
No. But, I'm just talking about weird things. Dave said something about a story. I said, I don't know if this is funny or weird. I said, it's got to be more than weird.
It's
Because
weird.
I've
and
never
funny.
seen it. I've never seen it since then. But
Sure.
when you go from that when you go through that scenario,
Yep.
I'll never forget that. And then, anyway,
Well, I mean, this is what we needed, though. I needed you here today, Bill, as probably my first interview. In fact, you were, except for Gary Evans on the phone,
Yeah.
which really wasn't the same. But before I go here, because Bill is being interviewed by me, he's entitled to one of my free coffee mugs. So there's your coffee mug, Bill.
Does it hold?
It'll hold anything you want.
Well, I just wondered
It's called
because
coffee mug. Just for the
after
generality.
bringing up that play, I may have to have something strong.
But Bill, I so appreciate you being here today.
Yeah.
And Bill, by the way, is if not the best, one of the best. So we won't use any other term but that. But we'll have Bill back again, and we'll have something else to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this. By all means, today is we were going to take in a softball game, but we may not now because of some physical problems. But other than that, you enjoy today. Go out there and take in a game. They start around 4:00 today, and there might even be a college game going on already. So take one in. Have a great day. There we go. Nothing to worry about it anymore. That was great, Bill. Absolutely great.
I appreciate the opportunity, David. I like what you're doing here.
I'm glad you do, and I think it's very beneficial for.
I've got to tell you a story
Sure.
because I am pissed.
Yeah, let's set that there. Yep. I got a box for you with a brand new one if you want.
Jerry insulted me at our last time we were in St. John's.
Really?